Yo, what's going on, guys? Hey, I want to thank you all for watching these videos. It means a lot to me. I really do appreciate it, but I've noticed that a lot of you aren't subscribed yet. So do me a solid, hit that sub button, and if you enjoy these discussions or have your own thoughts, please be sure to share them in the comments below and keep the conversations going. This stuff is a big passion of ours here in the Ashes community, so sit back, enjoy this one, and I hope to talk to you soon. First of all, have any of you guys actually played Star Wars Galaxies? I'm curious. Reason I ask is they've made it very well known. I believe it was Jeffrey Bird is a big fan of the crafting system in Star Wars Galaxies. So if anybody has played that game, hey, you might have a little bit of insight, ideas as to what the crafting system in Ashes is going to at least loosely look like. Could be valuable knowledge, as we're not going to see crafting in Alpha 1. That's going to be brought online more so in Alpha 2, and probably even still only in an early iteration of it, not the full-blown everything's in there kind of crafting system. Obviously, it's about testing the mechanics of the system and making sure everything in that aspect works right. It's not about putting all of the recipes and gear into the game yet. Once you get the mechanics working, you can add those filler items in as much or as little as required later on to really bring the game to life. So that's an important distinction to make, I feel. It's going to be a while before we see the crafting system. That being said, because of that, we can really potentially have some influence or input on what that system might look like as a community. If we are very aligned with wanting or ex-naying certain aspects of a crafting system in general, then that is likely going to be something that gets translated to the game. So let's look at Gathering. One of the Artisan classes. In our future discussions, we'll get into processing and then we'll get into crafting. Crafting might even be a two-parter itself, just because it's so big and there's so much there. We'll take it as it goes. So I wanted to break it down that way so that we can be a little bit more focused and on point with our discussion rather than getting off on too many tangents, as I know I'm guilty of. I rant a lot, if you haven't noticed. All right. So Gathering, yes, we know it's one of the Artisan classes. You will be able to master into the Gathering tree. And then from there, you'll be able to master the individual Gathering jobs, if you will. So you could be a master lumberjack, you could be a master miner, you could be a master herbsmith or harvester, a master animal tamer, those types of things. You could master multiples, of course, but that's not going to be an easy thing to do. So when you choose the path of artisanship that you wish to master, bear that in mind, that you will be able to, that you're not pigeonholed to just one specific thing, but you can do, you're more so just good at collecting things in the gathering profession, or processing things in the processing, or building finished goods in the crafting. Now let's talk about how you enable crafting, or gathering, sorry. Let's talk about how you enable gathering. Gatherers will require tools in order to harvest resources. As the resources go up in quality, the tool requirement to harvest those nodes also increases. As the gatherer, you will be able to construct your own tools. Now, side note for a second, anybody can gather, right? Like, even if you're a master processor or a master crafter, you can still gather. You just won't be able to get to the higher levels of gathering if you're mastered in something else. So by mastering in it is when you can harvest the upper class, the high tier nodes. At what threshold that'll play out at, we'll have to wait and see, and that is something that is likely to be subject to testing as well. All right, so gatherable resources and their discovery. So how they appear in the environment. Let's go watch a short clip here, and we'll see a little bit about how these things look in the environment, right? Like, obviously, once you get close enough, you'll come up and actually get to see an interaction type interface come up with it. So 300 win, my guy. How are you doing? It's been a minute, sir. You like new and exciting adventures, don't we all? Good to see you, sir. How you been?
All
right, here. Let's go back here. Tanky McTankerface.
Looks like Tanky McTankerface has found some fish.
So you can see we got a little bit of a glow going here. A little bit of sparkles. Yeah, sparkle, sparkle! The infamous volcano in the background. I see a lot of red arrows out here. I think these are enemy NPCs.
We got one.
And you can see a lot of things standing over here on the rocks where he's looking. And there's it looks like a raptor type thing up there.
Kind of cool.
So there you go. So, oh yeah, look, it is a raptor. Ha! Right on.
Got a raptor.
But yeah, so you can kind of see over there on just under the health. Oh, stop spinning.
What does he have for us? Essence shard.
Ooh. So yeah, you can see up here this thing, this herb. It looks like a lettuce or something. I don't know.
This stuff. Calatsigia septum.
I couldn't even read that if I tried, man. And there's another one right there, another flower or herb glowing. So you get within a decent proximity and you can see the glowing. Now this obviously will be subject to change, but it gives a pretty decent visual indicator as you get close to the node of its presence in the world. And with how rich and luscious this world and environment's going to be, you're going to need something, especially. You're not just going to run around the world clicking on every little thing around you within like a 2-meter radius of you. That becomes too tedious, especially when trying to discover new things that you don't identify with. When it comes to gathering resources, what do you want to see? Do you want to see something visual from like halfway across the map? Do you want to see like within 20 yards, it starts to have you start to see a bit of a glowing effect if you're able to gather it or if it's present? Yo, Twidget, greetings from Vegas. How are you doing? How's Vegas today? Hopefully you got some beautiful weather down there. Has to be within your 30-yard vision. Yeah. Like, I think you should be able to see the node itself for whatever it is, right? Like, whether you can identify it as a gatherable resource or not will depend on your knowledge and experience of that node. But it shouldn't have. I agree. I don't think it should have any effects until you're within a targetable range. Let's put it that way. If I can target a character and attack them at that range, then I should be able to see. So whatever that maximum range is, if that's 30 yards, then 30 yards. If it's 45 yards, then I want to see it at 45 yards. And it's static for everyone, right? So like whatever the longest targetable attack is that's reasonable in the game, set it at that. And that. So it'll have a bit of a glowing effect depending on the environment and things that are in the background, the ambient light. Though that sparkle may be easier or harder to see. Here's an interesting one though. When it comes to very, very high level resources, like the most, like let's say the absolute rarest mineral vein, is that something that should have any sort of glowing effect to it, or the sparkles or anything like that? Or should that be just part of the environment and you have to see it and recognize it? Or only if you are high enough gathering skill will you be able to see it? Because people that aren't masters in gathering, they're not going to be able to see that at all, right? In Final Fantasy 14, it shows up on your mini map on age. You have to hover over it. No, it's a sparkle. Give me my sparkles. I do like the sparkle effects, because there needs to be some visual indicator in my mind, right? You especially when you take into account people that might be colorblind. If there's no movement or graphical representation that there is a gatherable node there, someone who's colorblind probably won't be able to see that, or depending on what spectrum of color they have challenges with, might not be able to see that. And the game, from what I understand, will be friendly to colorblind players. So I think having that sparkle there is very important for that reason. But on super high level end resources, there is a part of me that wants them to be a little bit more hidden and hard to find. And it just adds that extra level of exclusivity to it. But does that make sense when everything else does have the sparkle to it? I don't know. I don't know if it makes sense. I'd be happy if it told you do not yet have the skill to harvest the gatherable or the right tool, because you will have to make sure you have the right tool. Now, we might get into this down in the Artisan Tools section here, but my current understanding and how I've read the information is that you will pretty much need a different tool for every item that you're harvesting, which seems a little excessive to me, especially if you have to carry all these tools around in your bag to go out and gather stuff. That occupies a lot of bag space, and just it seems overly cumbersome as a system. I understand having tiers, so if you had, like 5 different tiers of resources, that in order to go up and harvest a tier above, you would need a tool. But that, a B tier tool should be able to harvest C tier or B tier gatherables, as well as anything below that, C or D or E, whatever other tiers are below that. I don't know if that's going to be the case. The way I've interpreted what they've said, and please correct me if you have better information on this, but the way I've interpreted what they said is that you will basically, in order to harvest the lower tier stuff, you will still need that lower tier tool. And I'm not a fan of that. I am definitely not a fan of that. I don't want to have to carry 4 pickaxes in my bag to go out and mine. I should be able to carry the best pickaxe I have crafted and be able to gather anything and everything I've up into and including that tier of pickaxe. That's how it was for Star Wars Galaxies, that you needed a tool for everything, for each one, essentially. Like you would have, if we're talking minerals here, you would need a copper pickaxe, you would need a tin pickaxe, a gold pickaxe, a silver pickaxe, an orca I don't know why I picked that a mithril pickaxe. I don't know why I picked that fucking element. The higher level you got, the better gear you had, naturally, yep. I think most games, even Valheim, for instance, let you keep one tool, more advanced version to harvest current, and lower one, for instance. That makes sense. And that's honestly the direction I see the game going. I feel like I've either misinterpreted that information, or that's going to be how it gets implemented when crafting gets implemented in Alpha 2. And yeah, but I honestly think I've just misinterpreted the information. And I really hope that's the case. I think most games, even Valheim, for instance, let you, more advanced version to harvest current and lower one, for instance. A copper pickaxe can one do copper, and gold one can do gold and everything under. Yeah, that makes sense. That's the way I expect it to be eventually in the game. Anything other than that, like if you still need a copper one, even though you've got a gold one, in order to mine the copper, either nobody's going to go out and gather copper until there's a crazy demand for it, or people are going to be running around with like 5 or 6 different tools in their bag at all times. Age the pickaxe does not matter. It's all about the skill level. Okay. I think both will be a factor in Ashes, is my understanding. You will need a certain skill level in order to craft the higher level pickaxe, which will then allow you to gather the higher level minerals. It's something like that. I like that, and I know Star Wars Galaxies is a huge influence into this crafting system, so we'll see what translates over. I've never played the game personally. I don't even know if you can still play it, actually, but might be worth checking out just to get a little bit of insight into the crafting system, to be honest. You can still play it? Okay. I've never hear anybody talk about it outside of it being, especially the crafting portion of it being an influence for Ashes. I never hear anyone talking about Star Wars Galaxies, but it might be worth checking out. Maybe we'll have to go and goof around over there for a little bit, you know, one of these days. There are a channel on Twitch. Okay, right on. Yeah, maybe we'll check it out. Maybe we'll start a tune over there or something one of these days. We'll see. I will be. I'll announce this towards the end of stream, but there will be some in a few weeks. There's going to be a major change to my schedule coming up. I'll say it now, but I'll say it again later. It's like private servers kind of deal. Okay, even still. So I have to sign my letters tonight, but I did get the job I was going after, you guys, which is super exciting. However, that does mean I will be working evenings, so I'll be working 3 to 11 p.m. my time, Pacific time. It's currently 7:30 right now, so I won't be doing these night streams anymore. We'll be switching to daytime streams, morning, early afternoon streams. I need to talk it over with my queen, with Lady Tilt, and we'll figure out exactly what that schedule is going to look like, and I'll be sure to let you guys know, hopefully at least a week in advance, if not sooner, what that schedule is going to look like, and hopefully I can still see you guys there. If not, well, we'll still be posting on the YouTube regularly, and I'll still be trying to hang out in people's streams. It'll be work from home, so I'm expecting at least after my training period, I'll have a little bit of flexibility to at least listen and whatnot, to hang out in some other streams in the evenings. So I won't be disappearing. But yes, thank you. If we'll probably have other people floating around by the end of stream, so I'll mention it all again later. Anyways, back to gathering. What do we got? So gathering requires the creation and use of tools. We kind of got into that. We'll get into it more in here in a minute. Gathering within a node's zone of influence will contribute to its experience growth, which is fantastic. I'd be their retired life. I'm jealous, man. Jealous. But that's awesome. That makes me happy. I love that anything you do will contribute to the growth of the node, as well as I can imagine very early on in the game, it's going to be all about the gathering. You're going to need to gather resources to give them to processors. You're going to need to gather resources for your guild. You're going to need to gather resources to build the buildings and features within the nodes, especially once you hit, stage 3, when mayors come into play. They can put up quests and things like that to go out, fill an order to gather like 50 lumber or something like that, or 50 trees to build an inn or a tavern or whatever else, some things to bring the node to life. That's all going to be player driven to grab, to buy all that stuff in node housing. Buy early. Shh, don't go giving away all the secrets, you guys. I hear even in the podcast a couple weeks ago, talking about, hey, how do you know how you become a Varen billionaire? Yeah, invest early. Shh. Don't give it all away. If people can't figure that part, like, I'm all for doing guides and helping people out, but you know what? No, I want my mansion. Okay, I want my mansion. Don't know if I'll stay in it, but I want my mansion. I think you can have both. Can you not? Can you not have a freehold and a in-node housing? I thought you could. I fully intend to have a freehold as well, but if I have to wait a little bit extra for a freehold in order to get that house at the first opportunity, then one in-node, one apartment, one freehold. Yeah. So you can have a lot of things, and it absolutely, it can be a huge investment, especially the housing aspect of it can be a huge investment. So, but so gathering is going to be very important early on in the game. As the game progresses and ages and more resources are available in the world, more and more people have higher level gathering and things, you're going to see a lot things just naturally kind of happening. But I think that's going to be a huge driver early on. So pay attention for that, and leveling your gathering might almost be a better approach than just trying to power level your adventuring class if you want to kind of, make a little bit of extra coin along the way. So be wary of that. But then again, early in the game, before people are in guilds and all that jazz, I wouldn't be surprised if you see a lot more PKing happening as well. Betterer? Did I say betterer? Did I actually say that? That is gooder English. I'm glad you understand. I don't remember saying that, but I say things that I don't remember all the time, so here we go. You need like 10 iron bars to make a level 1 item, 100 bard to make the level 10 version of it. Okay. Which is going to be crazy. Like that's, then you extrapolate that all the way up to level 50 and how many bars you might actually need. And this is something that, again, we will touch on later. I think it might be under resource quality, but they are planning ways to incorporate low-level materials to still be relevant in creating high-end game finished goods, which I think is really important because it keeps all the areas in the world relevant and full of life. Okay. We might get into this as well coming down when we get down here, but there's going to be regular nodes that you just run around. Like you could be running around finding a mineral node anywhere in the world, but there could also be veins that they've talked about, right? So instead of just finding like a node of gold somewhere to mine, there could be a gold vein, which multiple people will be able to interact with and hit at a time, and will yield exponentially more resources than just a regular node will be, and will be on a bit more of a timer respawn type thing. So those will be around too. How something like that is going to be incorporated for some of the other resources that are gatherable, such as trees. Are you going to just walk like trees are trees, right? I don't know if there's what's going to be a differentiating factor between a harvestable tree and a non-harvestable tree. You're going to have herbs and things like that. So unless you walk into like a flower bed, so I don't know where that vein mentality is going, how that's going to be applied to other resources. We'll have to wait and see. Smelting get better, you get more for less. Nice. Yeah, processing is going to be an interesting one to look at for sure. My precious. That makes perfect sense. That as you get better at it, the better you're going to be able to do. Giant cedar versus a pine tree. But what are the, who's to say which one, if you walking through this forest here, what makes this tree gatherable but not that one, for example? So that I'm curious about. Or are all the trees going to be? Yeah, it could affect the yield of each tree as well as the quality of lumber. But the larger tree could give more. Certain low level gatherables will have a tiered progression into higher level crafting. If you're gathering leaves of the blue petal flower to craft a pigment that's going to be used in the development of a tunic that I can wear at level 1, then I may need to collect those in order to craft the pigments to craft a greater pigment that might be present in the crafting of a higher level item. So it's going to be a kind of a tiered progression so that materials have relevancy throughout the different levels of crafting. And that's important from an economic stability standpoint. You need to have layered demand from a supply standpoint so that players are interested in collecting and gathering those materials. They're still relevant when the later level items are crafted. So like my understanding would be like you can get blue petals from a flower to create this pigment, but maybe you when you get higher level gathering, you can then gather large blue petals from other flowers that, you know, so you have a higher grade tool and skill level. So you could either use those to create the greater pigment directly, or you can go from the base level and work your way up to it. That's going to be huge in when it comes to the economy as well, and how these types of things are going to be sold on the auction houses and between players. Because if it takes 10 blue petal flowers to create one greater pigment, but only one giant petal to create a greater pigment, then in theory 10 blue petals should be the same price as one big petal, maybe a tiny little bit cheaper, because there's more work involved in turning it into a usable item. In Final Fantasy 14, you strip the tree but not chop it down, so it can grow back. And you chop it down and it grow back in a few hours. I expect that, you know, I don't expect to see like clear cut deforestation going on here, where and then you need like that level of environmental management. I don't think we'll see, even on the accelerated timeline, where basically a year is going to happen in a month. Essentially every 4 weeks is going to be roughly a year, because we're going to experience the 4 seasons every week, or 1 season every week is my understanding right now. That's the current plan. Again, it could be adjusted and tweaked. If people really don't like how fast it is, then it might be slowed down. Or if it's too slow for some people, they might speed it up. But I don't see that getting sped up. All right, so let's look at some of the gathering professions that have been identified so far. Like 1 out of 10 to 15 tree can be chopped down. Most likely something like that. From what we've seen, it won't be every tree. I mean, from a drastically changing the landscape, where someone could just go in and clear cut a whole area, even if they're on a 10-minute, 15-minute respawn, that could make sense. Like you just don't need to have all of those trees. Maybe they all will be gatherable, but maybe only a certain amount within that zone can be gathered at any given time. So there might be 100 trees in a zone, but you can only gather 15 of them. If those 15 if any of those get taken or get chopped down, then there's a spawn timer for that tree to respawn. When that tree respawns, maybe it cannot be chopped down again, but one of the other trees that were not active before now become active, and you can chop it down instead. I can see that being kind of how they structure the system, so that you can't just keep going to the same spot. Because I mean, obviously you can see a tree from a mile away. Lumberjacking is going to be by far the easiest visually to see where resources exist in the world, right? Whereas mining or herbalism might be a little bit more difficult. Space and weight will be an issue and limit people. I'm really curious, like, if you're going to harvest lumber, do you need a mule to tow that log back or tow X amount of logs back for you? Or do you just get the logs? I expect you will then have to take that log to a sawmill as a processor or a processing station in order to have that log turned into usable lumber. That's an interesting take on it for sure, I think. All right. So some of the gathering professions, there might be more to come, but I definitely think we're going to see all of these in the game at a bare minimum. We got farming. So farming food and things like that so that you can cook it to get buffs or sell it in your tavern for buffs and whatnot. So I definitely see that. Fishing, same thing. You will be able to fish on your freehold. If you put a fishing pond on your freehold, you will be able to do that. You'll be able to stock it. I think there will be certain fish that are only available from freehold ponds as well. Obviously, there's going to be rare spawns around the world and hotspots or whatever for all of these professions. Herbalism, of course, as it feeds into alchemy. Lumberjacking, it's going to be huge for carpentry, as well as probably one of the main resources, along with mining, required to build up nodes and whatnot. Now, mining brings in interesting, because obviously we always talk about the metals aspect of it for blacksmithing, for armor smithing, for weaponsmithing, for hell even your ship workers are probably going to want metal along with lumber. That being said, what about the stone aspect of it? That's going to be big too, especially in city construction, in possibly even in siege defense construction. I can see that being very, very strong in freehold development, in guild hall development, things like that. I can see stone being a big aspect of this that at least I personally don't often think about or consider. It's usually the metals, the gems, those types of things that come to mind when you think of mining, but it'll be more than that. And taming. Animal taming is going to be... I feel like animal taming is going to be a huge profession that a lot of people are going to want to partake in, because animal husbandry is going to be a big thing. Outside of animal husbandry, I don't know that we are going to see too much use for taming. And animal husbandry, as it stands, will be a processing ability. There is no crafting level finished good for that. Processing kind of takes over that, where you have a couple tamed animals, you make them, get down and dirty, and there you go. You do a thing. Twitch it! What? Dude! Rock on, buddy. Thank you. That's incredible. Thank you so much, my friend. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Wow. Threw me right off track. What'd you miss? Twidget just dropped 100, my friend. Holy fuck. Okay. Give me a second. Give me a second to find my words. That's incredibly generous. Incredibly generous. Thank you so much, Stridget. I really appreciate that. The timing was great. What was I even talking about? The birds and the bees, the bad touch. I wish I could play that song on here right now, but DMCA and all that shit. And I'm not gonna sing for you. Everyone's gonna leave. All right. Wow. Okay. Taming, yes, taming. So outside of animal husbandry, I don't know that we're going to see a big market for taming. Maybe taming will also be able to lead into the battle pet system, which I think would be very huge, along with the mounts, and as well maybe even into the caravan system. Now, I don't know how exactly your caravans, your mounts, and possibly a third another way of acquiring an animal. Like, is your mount going to be what tows the caravan for you, or is that going to be another animal? Vanity pets, yeah, it could be for vanity pets too, I suppose. Typically when I think of a vanity pet, I think of a miniature type pet, but it doesn't have to be that way. You could maybe have a fucking giant, that giant rhinoceros thing that we've seen in the live stream. That thing, you could have that thing just following you around just for the sake of following you around, perhaps. Or maybe it'll be its own classification depending on the size. Maybe critters, which are typically non-threatening, just general life in the world to populate the world. Maybe things like that, you'll be able to tame them for the purpose of vanity pets. Vanity pet for the house to chill around. Could you imagine just having some crazy little demon dog thing just roaming around your freehold? Whether you're there or not, maybe it keeps guard. That would be really cool. So, you see it, okay. There's a good chance we're going to see something like that then, right? And that gives a lot more use and purpose to taming, rather than just animal husbandry. Not that animal husbandry won't be an incredibly demanding market. I'm also curious. I don't know if they've clarified this yet about animal husbandry. Maybe we'll update it. Maybe I'll update my question for Friday. But I'm a little curious now. When you breed animals in animal husbandry, is it a one and done, or do you actually keep them around for a few goes? Can you have a whole stable of 10 different animals and you can mix and match and breed them? I'm curious to see how the details of animal husbandry fleshes out. I'll be honest, animal husbandry is one of the things really speaking to me right now, something that I'm really curious about and interested in. However, it might be a conflict of interest with wanting to be on the oceans, sailing a lot. So we'll see. But I am very keen on learning more about that. So that I might actually update my my question for this week. Also, I won't be there. I won't be there live with you guys this Friday. I'll be at work. I'll watch it afterwards. Maybe we'll watch it next week together or something. But I'll probably just watch it afterwards when I get home. Okay, so mastery. This is a pretty quick and easy one, I think. Doing good, just getting tilted by some Star Citizen. Really? You're playing Star Citizen? That was a game I always wanted to play, but yeah, haven't got around to it, so just checking out my bad investment. Fair enough. Someday, maybe 10 years from now. It looked to be so amazing, but man, I stopped following it years ago, to be honest. Just I never thought it was going to become a thing. I was like, this is just one of those things that's going to be in development forever, but in a stage of development that you can't really play it. It's Bucky's Hill is definitely a game there. It looked so good. It when I first heard about it and I started looking into it and reading about it, I was like, oh man, this is the type of game that I can see losing myself in. Completely losing my life to, right? Similar to what Ashes promises to be. But I have a big fan of sci-fi and that sort of stuff too. But I've never, I look at games like EVE Online and I'm like, man, this looks incredible. This looks like an amazing game that I'd love it. But I go and I get started in it and it feels like I'm so late to the party that there's no point in being there right now. Like you ever go to a party and everyone's already drunk and passing out and they're just like the night's winding down and you're showing up like you just got off work, you're fresh, you're ripped, you're raring to go. And it feels like you missed the party. And it's like, man, I don't want to be here. That's kind of, I'm speaking back to like 10, 15 years ago. My lifetime anyway. Not a fan of alpha games. An alpha game just isn't really a game. Like it's a testing environment is what it is. And anytime a developer is positioning it as a game, they're gonna really drive a lot of their potential community away, I feel, just by not setting proper expectations. That is a fear, even with Ashes going non-NDA, of course. EVE Online take forever to get into. That was the vibe I got. Like I put maybe an hour into it and I'm just like, nah. There's so much to learn. There's so much to absorb. And just like I feel like a plankton in it. And there's just like fucking blue whales just swimming around me, just swallowing up everything, Played too many games. Is that even a thing? Can you play too many games? Firefall was a great game. It was just shut down. I don't remember Firefall. I remember hearing of it. Eve was very cool before. It's a giant group and toxic paradise. Yes, I kind of got that vibe. I loved like the idea of corporations and that large scale player-driven economy and hierarchy within the game. I thought that was really cool. It's just, if you're not already in it for something, then what's the point, right? Hope they had Firefall Summer in TOC. What is Firefall? So Artisan Mastery. Essentially, there's 3 paths you can choose to master. We kind of touched base on this earlier. Gathering, processing, or crafting. You can only master one of these, but you will be able to dabble in all of them to a certain degree. Gathering is a parent artisan path along with processing and crafting. Within each of the 3 parent paths lies different professions. You may only ever master one parent path, but you may spend time mastering each profession within the parent artisan path. Or a master gatherer should be a significant time investment and resource investment, and because of that, it should also be something that when you achieve that status, it's like people on the server know who you are, to an extent. Now, I do believe, and we'll touch base on this at a later time when we talk about more specifically about the crafting path. But I do believe that they have changed it from being able to master all of the different crafting professions to only doing like 2 or 3. They haven't really settled on a number, but they realized, I think, that the ability to master into all of them probably felt a little too lucrative to some people, as well as unachievable to most because of the time investment for each one that's required. YouTube Firefall Thumpers. Okay. They gather mats, but it needs to be protected, but mobs will try to kill it. Aha! Okay. I actually wanted to talk about that. We will get to it. But something similar to that, at least what I'm thinking you're talking about, I want to talk later about what do you guys feel about hiring NPCs to go out and gather for you passively while you're doing anything else, possibly even while you're offline. I think we can talk about it. We'll talk about it down here a little bit. Farmhands will only work on the freehold. I'm only okay with it if they can be killed. I think that would be I don't think it could be done any other way than that they can be killed and that they can be looted. Having said that, okay, let's talk about it now. We brought it up. Let's talk about it now. I agree. I'm a fan of it, that you can hire them to go out and do something. I think there is a degree of a failure that needs to be implemented so that, you know, maybe you send them out to gather for an hour, or you send them out to gather 10 of something, for example. There is a certain level or failure rate that might happen where maybe they only come back with 7 out of 10 or whatever it is. But you're still, you paid for a certain amount of time or whatever, but I don't think they can really pull it off, though, without really good AI. That's the biggest challenge, I think. They're limited on how much they can carry. They can only gather on the freehold. It was it has been confirmed. Okay. Very good. For farmhands. That's really cool if they can gather stuff on your freehold for you. That's awesome. If it is, we might even, like resource extractors, it might be under here. So we'll see. Farm for you and fish. I think you can also farm vegetables, possibly even some herbs as well. But I'm curious of like having an NPC be able to go out in the world and chop down trees, mine minerals, gather herbs, or maybe even tame animals for you. You pay a certain amount to have the NPC go out and do that. But that NPC, absolutely, they can be killed. You know, if they run too close to a bear, you know what? Maybe that bear attacks it. And if that's a low-level NPC that you hired, they can't defend themselves. They die. They never come back. They just never come back. You're out that money, that's it. You never hear anything more about it. Maybe you can go out and investigate and find them. I don't know. That sounds pretty complex. They can also be killed by other players. And if they've already gathered some stuff, well, they can be looted just the same as if that was you that got killed while you were gathering. So a certain portion of the stuff on there gets destroyed. A certain portion of it is looted and rewarded to whoever's looting that corpse. I would also want that person, whoever attacked them and killed them, to be subject to the corruption system. The same as if they killed a player, though. That would be my only stipulation I would put on that. So that it's not just a loot pinata running around the world that someone else hired for you to go out and kill. Run the tavern. Yep, I remember reading about that. All controlled by the app, which is really cool, is there will be an app interface to manage a lot of this stuff. You can grow trees on your freehold. I think you can grow pretty much anything on your freehold if you put the right plots, or if you pick a freehold in the right environment for what you're wanting to do. I think you can pretty much have anything pop up on your freehold. So if you can have farmhands or NPCs, essentially workers that you hire or you employ to consistently gather those things while they're on your freehold, then that would be awesome. And if they're on your freehold, they can't be killed because nobody can attack you on your freehold unless there's a node siege going on, is my understanding as well. So if the node that your freehold is a part of is under siege and gets destroyed, then your freehold can also be destroyed. It should run like the one in AHBO. Okay. Man, I've not played enough games. That's the conclusion I'm coming to right here, is I have not played enough games, you guys. So artisan progression occurs based on experience, repetition of tasks within a branch, also the achievement of certain benchmarks within each branch. Players can dabble in all professions at a beginner's level before they decide to master a particular pathway. So like that makes it sound like the threshold for mastery is actually going to be pretty low. Now, to achieve master is probably going to be significant, but the gateway of what prevents just anybody from progressing in that path is going to be pretty low. Ooh. Well, if it has to travel between your freehold and town, that could be incredibly dangerous. It'd be like an automated caravan, essentially. You best be hiring some guards or hoping you've got some friends that are around at that time if you're not available. I can't wait for the caravan system. It's gonna be a shit show. It's gonna be a blast. It's gonna make or break so many relationships, like political level relationships, I think. Whether it's between guilds or between nodes, between mayors, all of it. It's gonna be... I think the caravan system is gonna be that kind of catalyst. If you attack my caravan, we're at war with you now. Like, you are KOS. You are kill on sight for the rest of your time in Ashes of Creation on this server, you know? Like, choosing a specific path in the skill tree allows the player an opportunity to specialize in a certain area. This encourages player interdependency, enhancing the artisan experience. It is possible to master multiple professions, but not all, within a parent artisan path, but this will be a long and labor-intensive feat requiring many resources. A player may only master a profession if they have achieved the artisan path mastery. Fair. Based on testing, it may be decided to limit profession mastery certificates to a capped value. This, I believe, to be an absolute thing. I can see this being even limited as much as to like 2 or 3 professions being the master cap. Masteries aren't just about making an item. They grant many things, including titles, access to items, bargains, and quests. That's how it is in Final Fantasy XI. Like, you can only master like 3 professions within a path kind of thing. So, resources. Gatherable resources. These are the raw materials and harvestables within the world. Where they occur in locations where you would expect them to be organically. So you're probably not gonna get an iron vein in the middle of the rainforest. That's like on a flat area with no mountains type thing. You're probably not gonna see trees to chop down in a desert. Probably won't find many fish there either. Master only one, yeah. I think mastering 1 or 2 things is pretty common in MMOs, I feel. A lot of times you're pretty limited on what professions you can even have, never mind being able to dabble in a lot of things. Oh, interesting. Okay. That gives you a little bit like, okay, I've mastered this, but I can do these 2 pretty well, and they kind of support what I've mastered, and everything else I can do a little bit of just for the sake of doing it kind of thing. Make a little bit of coin off it, perhaps. I did do a video quite a while ago where we kind of speculated and even ranked all of the professions that we were aware of at that time anyway, in terms of your ability to make gold off of them, for like basically an economic tier list of it. It was an ambitious video, especially considering that was probably done, I don't know, what, like 5-6 months ago at this point. Even now, that's a very ambitious thing because we don't really know too much about the crafting system. But it's an interesting thought as you, when you approach the game, is what's your purpose for choosing this profession and wanting to master in it? Is it so that it can make you a lot of gold? Is it so that you can have a certain renown? Is it so that you can play a certain play style and give yourself the freedom to do so? Are you kind of role playing a little bit and you're picking a profession based off of kind of your character that you're designing? There's a lot of different ways to approach how you pick professions. Gathering, I feel like, and honestly, I feel like all parent paths, all professions are going to be relevant throughout the life cycle of the game. I don't think that, you're going to get to a certain point and, mining is no longer viable because of the way the repair and durability system works, because your top level gear is going to be largely crafted, not just exclusively dropped from bosses and encounters. There's going to be a constant life cycle, a constant need for things, within the game. It's really going to depend on the population of the server you're on. To make the best armor in Final Fantasy XI, you need to have 100 leatherworking, 75 bonecraft, and 50 metalworking. That's very specific. Difficulty of obtaining the materials plus usefulness of the item equals value. Absolutely. Also, how many people are making it. The more people that are looking to gather those materials, the more scarce those materials will be, or the more spread out those materials are likely to be, therefore increasing their value quite a bit, to the point where maybe the juice isn't worth the squeeze. If the end item really isn't, if it's not the best for whatever it is, then you could wind up pricing yourself out of the market. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be very, very interesting. But when you take all of that and again look at the fact that certain low level gatherables will have tiered progression to them, then everything kind of comes around full circle. So keen on how that'll really work out. I cannot wait to test the gathering the artisan system in Alpha 2. I really can't. It's going to be awesome. I hope we at least get an Alpha 2 timeline by the end of the year. I don't feel like that's too ambitious of a request. Let's go pick some mushrooms. Hey, look at all of them there. Let's go pick some mushrooms. Next thing you know, you got some Tallnar come crawling out of a mushroom den, just like, hey, what's up, guys? Not that I've ever seen any of that. Not even Blizzard soon at this point, right? Some resources will be one-time gatherables that will randomly respawn at a different location once collected. Probably like your lumber stuff and whatnot. Share what you had. Wait, what do you mean? This wasn't me. So, okay. So when I was a kid, I want to say I was maybe 10 years old or so. I was hanging out with my good friend at the time. There was a giant field. And when I say giant, I mean like this thing went on for kilometers, many miles for those of you that work in that system. So we're out in this field, right? And we're out there riding our bikes. We're always over there riding bikes. It's just a bunch of dirt bike trails and four-wheeler trails and things like that. So we're out there pedaling around, being kids. We had a giant tree fort in the area and everything. And we're heading out to the tree fort one day, riding along, and out of nowhere, my buddy's dad comes crawling out of the tall grass, just lit. Like you could just look at his eyes and see from the glow on his eyes that he was in another world. He was in another place. I mean, we're 10 years old. I had no idea what the fuck was going on. I guess, it was my buddy's dad. He'd seen him like this before, right? I later came to understand that he had been growing a patch of mushrooms in that area where he came crawling out of. And I guess he got in there one day and was munching around, and yeah, one thing led to another, and there you go. So yeah, stumbling Tallnar. There you go. I don't know if he was a Tallnar, but hey, it was a good time for sure. For him, I guess. We had no idea what was going on. We carried on with our day, and he seemed fine otherwise. Not sure what crafting you'll be doing. Cooking look great if I have a tavern. Absolutely, cooking will be, but that'll be interesting. Will you be able to have, if you master into cooking, will you be able to have upgraded levels of food available within your tavern that provide better buffs than those who aren't master cooks and just have kind of your generic pub fare? Am I going to go to your tavern and get chicken wings, or am I going to go to your tavern and get chicken wangs? Along with the equipment. Yeah. Better food buffs. Like you would think you would be able to just upgrade the menu of your tavern, essentially, which You know, if the tavern is kind of your big focus, if that's your end goal and going to be the part of the game that you're really going to look at for generating an income, making money, obviously location is going to be very important. You're going to want to be near populated areas to attract more and more adventurers. But if you are known for having the best food in town, so to speak, then naturally more people are going to want to come to you, and you will be able to charge a bit of a premium for that. Now, if everybody who owns a tavern around you does the same thing, then, well, let's hope you're a good belly dancer. If it's like Star Wars Galaxy, it's the quality of the food, not what kind of food. Yeah, I mean, in the end, I mean, it's a character eating food in the game. You don't really care what it is. It's the quality that really matters, right? The what it is. I'll come in and eat. Blah, blah, blah. I don't even know, what am I thinking of? Tripe. I'll come in there and eat fucking tripe. If it means I'm getting the best buff, I don't care. It's not like I personally have to eat it. It's like a steak from a microwave dinner compared one from a 6-star cooked by a 40-year chef. Yeah. Little bit different. Which is funny. My question for the live stream right now, if I leave it as it is asking Steven, what's his process for cooking the perfect steak, both in real life and in Vera? Not even not fully related to Ashes. I had to do it a little bit. I'm really curious. I want to leave it there just to see if it gets picked, because I think it's a fun one. Plus, you know, I'm a bit of a barbecue guy. If he's got some secrets, I want to know. Like, I always hear from chefs like, oh, you got to pan fry your steak and do it this way, and it's like, no. I do it on the grill. I don't care. I'm always going to do it on the grill, because I just like the flavor. I have a charcoal grill. I like the smoky flavor. If I lose a bit of tenderness as a result, I'm quite okay with that. I'm not buying $100 steaks. Other resources will exist as a cluster, also called vein gatherables. These will last until the full resource is depleted. Like a large mine that's present has a vein of mithril ore in it, or a herd of some type of animal that you can collect fur or wool from. So will that be animal taming? Or will that just simply be going out and killing the animal and hoping that the fur and wool is not too bloody? I mean, it could be washed, I guess, anyway, but I don't see this coming from animal taming unless you're just trimming the hair. But that would be more of an animal husbandry byproduct, almost. There will be moving resources such as herds of animals that are constantly moving around the world. Once a resource is depleted from one location, it may respawn in the same location or somewhere else, depending on the type of resource. Resources respawn on a cooldown basis. Resources won't be locked to the node system. That's fair, because they should be part of a biome, not part of a node. What civilization is doing should only impact its ability to regrow there. How good can you tan this hide? I don't know. Ask my kids how good I tan their hide. No, I'm kidding. I don't hit my kids. Never. No. Bad taste. Some unique resources may be monsters in disguise or have monsters defending them. So this is neat because, like, some monsters may be in disguise. I don't know if we get to see the picture here. Let me see if this guy right here hides like under the ground or in the mud or whatever. And you might only see the flower sticking up. So you go to gather it and then BAM! Eats your face. He looks like an anglerfish. I think we've talked about that. Flangler. Yeah, oh, there you go. Anglerfish. Flangler. Same thing, right? Flower angler. So, if you've never seen an anglerfish, just to show you. These are real fish, but they come from the very, very deep, dark ocean. Just alien, scariest looking things. But they have the antenna thing that comes off their head as a light. You know, down like many kilometers down in the ocean, light is only really generated either by an ROV that we drop down or by these types of things. So they attract fish. Something comes up to see what this light is, like a fly drawn to a flame or something, a moth drawn to the flame, and bam, gets eaten up. So that's what the flangler is all about. You're welcome for that beautiful explanation, by the way. They were in Finding Nemo. Were they in Finding Nemo? I don't remember Finding Nemo. I've seen Dory 4 million times, but I don't remember Finding Nemo. I don't know if I've ever seen all of it, to be honest. Flangler science. There you have it. But so we're likely to see a lot of variations of that. Like, can you imagine going to harvest a mineral node and all of a sudden this rock giant comes to life? Like, you fall off, you take half of your health and fall damage because the damn thing is turned into a walking mountain now, and then basically steps on you and you die. Sorry, that was really anticlimactic, I know, but things like that could happen, right? Maybe you go to chop down a tree and it's the elder dragon in the forest, and the tree's a part of him. Now he's mad. He's not happy with you. He's going to turn you into compost to feed the rest of the forest. So, things like that. Resources won't be locked to the nose. Some unique resources may be monsters. Yes. We really want resources to be persistent and non-renewable. If there's a mithril vein, that mithril vein will be there until it runs out. The server will manage these amounts on its own and will repopulate things where and when it desires. Uh-oh. Skynet's going to take over. You might find another mithril vein in that location sometime later, or somewhere nearby, or maybe never again. Interesting. I like it. I like that approach to it. So, artisan tools, gathering tools in particular, harvesting tools. The really nice thing, and I was hoping for this to be the way it is, crafters will be able to create their own, gatherers rather, will be able to create their own tools. They will not be reliant on anyone else to make their tools to conduct their craft. And that's the same for processing and crafting as well, I believe. Very, very important in my opinion. There's already enough interdependency between the three paths that I don't think putting that stipulation in there really makes any sense. They might, yeah, absolutely. They might need parts from something else. You might need to, in order to make a better pickaxe, you might need a certain piece of lumber. You might need a certain ore smelted into something. Possibly even crafted into a hilt and an axe head or a pickaxe head. And then you can put them together yourself. That could be a thing, absolutely. In which case, then you are still kind of reliant on the other artisans to do those things for you. But I guess to an extent, that's unavoidable when you're going to make it somewhat believable, I guess. Require the creation and use of harvesting tools that enable the gathering of resources. Progression in the gathering artisan class unlocks higher level harvesting tools that enable gathering of higher level resources. A gatherer at maximum proficiency will unlock master tool sets that will grant them access to the highest quality gatherables. Keeping systems working together. That is going to always be a thing, I feel. Yeah, that interdependency It seems to be the fundamental focus behind the design of the entire artisan system. But eventually need good shit if you're going to master. Can't master it all. Absolutely. Carpenter makes the handle weps. Make the blade. Leatherwork. All his thing. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it could all be tied in together somehow, some way. We'll have to see. A gatherer maximum will unlock tools will have durability and tool lifespans. The amount of usages of a gathering tool increases as the gatherer becomes more proficient in the gathering artisan tree. So they become more adept with their tools. Pretty understandable, right? Somebody who's never been a carpenter, never swung a hammer before, is probably going to chew the shit out of the base of the handle right under the head when they constantly miss what they're fucking swinging at. Versus somebody who's been doing it for a while, you know, 1 or 2 hits in their hammer and they're driving a nail every time. Takes a lot less impact to the tool. Or hit a finger, yeah. My dad hit my thumbnail when I was in grade 8. He hit my thumbnail. We were working on his truck, doing something, and he was swinging the hammer. And I was holding something for him. I can't remember if we were working on the truck or off the truck to do something else. But in any case, my thumbnail got all rotted and warped and, you know, started falling off. It took like a week or 2 for it to actually fall right off. And then a new one kind of grew in behind it. But it was pretty gnarly. It was really gnarly looking for a while. I grossed people out at school with it so much. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Hold this. It was a total accident, right? Like, and I know my dad felt so bad. He felt so bad for it. But what do you do? It was kind of funny. It's funny now, but I remember like the way because it warped into this big like bubbly thing when it was dying. And so I would take pencils and pens and shit and stick it in there because there was no feeling at the time. It was all dead, right? So I would stick something in there to hold it. And I'd walk around just doing this, like shaking the pencil or whatever around in my hand while I was sitting in class. People would freak out, man. They were so grossed out by it. And I was laughing the whole time. He laughed inside. I don't know. Maybe. You hit your kid with something like that, and I don't know. If I did something like that to my kid, I would feel pretty shitty. I'm not gonna lie. I don't think I'd laugh too much, but then again, different relationships and whatnot too. Where we're at, tools of the amount of usage of a gathering tool. Yeah, tools may become non-repairable, requiring recrafting. Artisans will not need to rely on other trees in order to make their tools. This is what I was kind of getting at, where I don't know that they will rely on the other paths. Tools do advance within the artisan tree, so your ability to either gather, process, or craft will require the equivalent tools necessary at that stage of crafting in order to accomplish the task at hand. So you could not mine copper and mithril with the same tool. See, now this is what I was kind of talking about near the top of stream, you guys. Hey, Wizzy, how you doing? Good to see you. Missing some chats? You might have been. If you're just tuning in, you've missed some chats and rants. Don't worry. As usual, this will be going up on YouTube. But this is kind of what I was getting at near the beginning of this talk, you guys, is you cannot mine copper and mithril with the same tool. That, to me, that means if I have a mithril pickaxe, let's call it a mithril pickaxe because it can mine mithril, that it cannot mine copper with that same pickaxe. That's what that implies to me. Again, this might just be me misunderstanding the information, and I really hope that is not the case. Because if you can't go backwards, if you can't kind of downgrade it, that makes no sense to me. If it means if I have a copper pickaxe that I cannot mine mithril with it, regardless of my proficiency, that makes perfect sense. And that is absolutely the way it should be, in my opinion. But if you can't go backwards, I mean, are we talking about PlayStations here? Are they not backwards compatible? This isn't Sony. Although I think they do have developers from Sony. Still, don't leave them in charge of the crafting system if it's not backwards compatible, okay? That's all I'm saying. Hey, there's the flangler. There you go. There's the flangler. Okay, if vanity pets are a thing, I want like 400 flanglers running around my freehold at all times. And I want them to like, especially if they can change the color or glow of their flangler thing, of the dangle of their flangler, and they can illuminate them in patterns to like point arrows or create some cool designs or something. Or when I come in and I walk through my front gate, that you can see the pathway just kind of like show up because they're glowing on either sides of the pathway. No, I would not step on them. They would not ever go under my feet. They would keep like a meter radius away from me at all times, kind of thing. But I would love to see something like that. That'd be super cool. I know it's a little excessive, but yeah, I think we do need some clarification on this, because right now it leaves a little too much. Can I I'm curious.
Scope.
You mentioned bringing up augments and crafting. I also had just a quick question. Watching the last stream you all did, talking about weapons and weapon progression with the weapons themselves. I assume there'll be tools for crafting.
Oh yes.
To go out. Will they also have some sort of progression system as you get more powerful as a crafter? Will your equipment also somehow improve? Like, can I use the same axe for copper as I do for, something much higher end, or does that
You
change?
cannot. No, tools do advance within the artisan tree. So your ability to either gather, process, or craft will require the equivalent tools necessary at that stage of crafting in order to accomplish the task at hand. So you could not mine copper and mithril with the same tool.
Awesome. Cool.
Very cool. There was a question that I had about the adventuring classes with the.
Okay, we'll leave that there. So that just reaffirmed what is written here, and the guys Lex and I forget the other guy's name now. I apologize. That do the wiki and transcribe everything. They're typically very accurate with their transcription. You should try to do an interview with Steven. I'd love to do one with him one day. I mean, I'm not really an interviewer kind of person. I would love to do it as like a community thing. Maybe have some other folks with me, not just me alone. But, at the same time, it could be a lot of fun. I think it would be really cool. I would love to, though. I would love to. If ever the opportunity comes up, I will put no stipulations on it. I will make it happen. I don't care if I have to schedule time off work, whatever. I will make it happen. That would be the ultimate, yeah. So you need multiple types of tools. That's what it sounds like, and that's kind of what we're talking about. It's like it makes it seem like if you're gonna go out into an area to just gather whatever's around, that you're gonna need to take multiple tools with you wherever you go. So that's multiple bag spaces that are now taken up just by the gathering tools that you need for whatever you might come across. You're not gonna want to just run past lower level stuff because it will still be relevant. It's not like you've hit max level in all of the stuff and the only thing that's worth anything are the 2 highest level resources. You're gonna want to get everything. So that I don't like that idea. It needs to be backwards compatible, in my opinion. I got a question for you to ask for me. Don't the tools go on the belt? I don't know. Do they go on the belt? Even still, how many belts are you going to put on before your pants fall down? How much can you really do before your pants fall down, right? Side note for a second here.
The average person.
Side note.
Called pants on the ground.
Pants on the ground.
Pants on the ground.
Okay, what's it about?
This video quality is top notch.
Can I
Ready
say
when you are.
Okay, ready?
1, 2, 3.
Pants on the ground, pants on the ground. Looking like a fool with your pants on the ground, with the gold in your mouth. Hat turned sideways, pants hit the ground. Call yourself a cool cat, looking like a fool. Walking downtown with your pants on the ground. Giddy up. Hey, get your pants off the ground. Looking like a fool.
Put too many tools on your belt. This is what happens.
Hey, get your pants off the ground. Looking like a fool with your pants on the ground. Gold in the mouth. Hat turned sideways, pants hit the ground. Call yourself a cool cat, looking like a fool. Talking with your pants on the ground. Boom.
How this guy isn't like he should be signed to a record label at this point, you know?
Larry, thank you. Larry, what was that song called?
Pants on the ground.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Positive? You know, I have a horrible feeling that song could be a hit.
Yeah. I'm gonna get my pants up. I'm gonna buy some belts after this.
Oh. I'm pretty sure it's called Pants on the Ground. It should be a hit. It should be a hit. It's like a cult classic, if anything. But the belt on the wiki, what belt? Wait, belt? I haven't heard that in years either. But it just came to my mind the second we was talking about. The second I said pants on the ground, I'm like, oh yeah, right. There's a song. Let's check it out. Backpack slots are a thing. Yes. I don't know if belt slots will be for holding tools though. I mean, that would make sense to an extent, but again, you put too many tools on your belt and your pants are on the ground. And then you look like a fool with your pants on the ground. Turn your hat sideways, then you go from being a special crafter to being a special crafter. Where were we at here? Artisan tools, right. Processing requires blueprints for the construction of buildings that are needed to process resources. Crafting requires the acquisition of recipes in order to craft items. That's fair. It's fair. Like dumb as fuck's sake. Okay, I'll take your word for it. I don't know, but super baggy. I did go through a phase, I think, in high school where I wore super baggy pants. Don't get me wrong, I am not a skinny jeans kind of guy. Okay, I don't like it super tight. All right, and pushing everything out of place, but comfortable. But I'm not gonna wear my pants on the ground, you know. I don't know. I don't know how you could ever run with your pants on the ground. Twidget PM me the link. Try again, Twidget, to post a link. My bot typically doesn't. It just throws up 3 asterisks, which is really annoying. JNCO or bust for my order. I don't know what JNCO is. Belts. All right, let's look at this. Belts are a type of armor in ashes. Belt hip slots include melee weapons, 2 slots, 1 on each side. Potion pouch scroll. Okay. There will be a priority system behind that that'll determine, do I show the bow if the greatsword is unequipped, or do I show the polearm if the greatsword is unequipped? Okay. See here you get kind of a blown out view of all the pouches and things. That's quite the adventure backpack right there. JNCO, a brand name of jeans in the 90s. Okay. Yes. Okay, yes. I remember now. I think. This is what you need to keep your pants off the ground. Comes complete with a surrender flag. You can just picture this guy, right? This character running down the road, chasing after whatever, or running away from a bunch of pursuants, and all the cups clanging away, and just the sound of all the things shaking, shit spilling out of the bag, white flag, I surrender, don't attack me, leave me alone. You know it's good. Like, it's that character from every show, every movie. Podrick's his name, I believe. Looked like the Hobbit. Yes, totally looked like the Hobbit. Samuel Tully was his name? I forget. It's been years since I've watched Lord of the Rings now. Lowering your pants mean you're available. Right? Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. And I mean, let's be honest. Let's be honest. Prison's a lot like high school when it comes to that, right? Sex in prison is a lot like sex in high school, to my understanding. I've never been to prison. I did go to high school. Might have even graduated. But the sex you want, you ain't getting. And the sex you getting, you don't want. I went to a few high schools. All right. I went to a few high schools. Raising one leg up meant you're taken. What? Is this, do you know from experience? Not to judge, just curious. My grandpa was a prison guard, actually. When he retired from the military, he became a prison guard. Okay, that's kind of what I was expecting. Yeah, because I feel like veterans don't have a shit ton of work that's available for them, but something like a prison guard is a much easier transition, I feel. Not that I would know too much about it, but just from talking to my grandpa anyway. Anyways, how did this conversation get so derailed? It happens every time though, doesn't it? That's why we love it. Back to pants on the ground. I mean, back to talking about gathering resources, you guys. Gathering resources. Maybe gathering your pants off the ground. My fault usually is. I accept full responsibility. So gathering your pants off the ground. Got it. Okay, so list of tools. These are obviously just a few tools. I imagine every one of these gathering professions is going to have its own unique tool to it. You'll probably see like a shovel or something like that related to farming. Obviously a fishing pole, a scythe for herbalism, an axe for lumberjacking, maybe a saw, but most likely an axe. A pickaxe for mining. Taming? What do you think taming's gonna have? Is it gonna be like the snake charmer flute? Maybe. I'm curious what tool animal tamers will have. I think maybe it's a rope. Maybe you lasso your animals. Really nostalgia bait. I was not a shepherd's crook. Okay. Well, I'm glad you were not disappointed, Wizzy. I would hate to disappoint. There's a video that shows some of it. Is there? That shows animal taming? Or just taming in general? Her genetic lines react to the type of mount or creature that is being captured or tamed. Combat fishing may be required in order to tame wild beasts. If you need to tame a giant beast for husbandry, as an example, it would be nice to be able to handle yourself in combat, should that beast want to eat you instead. That's fair! Walking up to the bear, then later in the video he's riding it. Okay. May fit cushion up with predefined behaviors. A wolf or dog may look different, but maybe balance the same template of behavior. That's fair. This gets into animal husbandry. We'll explore animal husbandry a lot more in the future. Really just curious about combat pets as well. I said I'm lazy. Oh, on Lazy Peon's video. Okay. He's done it. Well, he's done a couple good ones too. But it might be one of those things where, yeah, you can just kind of walk up to the animal and smooth talk it, just whisper sweet nothings in its ear until it's your best friend, or it decides it wants to eat you instead. You know? Maybe it saw through the bullshit that you were spewing into its ear, and it's like, no, fuck you. Oh, dinner. Try your best pickup lines, alright? Try your best pickup lines to get the animal on your side and obeying you for whatever purpose. List of tools, yes. Resource quality. Pick a playing grade. some reason I have zero intentions to go taming. Depending how the taming system works, I may be keen on it. But being that I plan on spending a lot of time on ship as well, might make taming a little less ideal or lucrative. I mean, there's only so much water folk out on the open ocean that you're going to interact with, never mind be able to tame and bring back to shore to stable for any reason. So, unless you tame an animal and it just like, you get it in your inventory, but I don't really see that being a thing. I am curious though how taming aquatic life will translate into being able to take that into a freeholder, being able to sell that to an animal husbandry processor. If taming will give you more mats from the mob while milling or fishing. How do you mean? Oh, hello. She ran away. Resource quality. Resources will have different levels of quality for the same resource type. This is somewhat similar to Star Wars Galaxies. Okay. Gatherers who are more advanced in their artisanry will unlock higher level harvesting tools that have a greater chance of collecting higher quality resources or procking a greater quantity. Yep. Absolutely. You can get attacked or kill it. You can learn more about the animal. Yeah. I would expect a bestiary to be kind of a thing that is both character bound as well as something that might even be in libraries, especially in scientific nodes. I can see there being kind of a node bestiary there that for any player that would go and interact with it can basically take their information and incorporate it into that node level bestiary. So that would be absolutely huge. You can learn its strengths and weaknesses. You can learn a little bit about its habitat and what it likes to eat, where it sleeps, what kind of resources it yields, what kind of level ranges it spawns in, how much health it has, how much experience it gives, all these things. And I'm curious to see how an animal husbandry matrix will be revealed. If it will be revealed. Like when obviously there's going to be a huge background matrix about what animals can breed with what other animals to produce what results. And we already know that it's not going to be a set static result every time, but there will be a level of RNG to the breeding, or at least the result of the breeding, that will produce a rarer child, for lack of a better word. But will that be information that will be revealed or documented as it's discovered in the world? And what will be kind of the availability of that information to the rest of the player base? Kill them in dungeon, better doing more damage. Exactly, right? Like if you know what the weak point is, maybe you then gain that as a combat advantage, assuming you have the ability to influence or expose that weakness. Obviously, if it's weak to bleed damage, but you're a mage and you don't have anything that can cause it to bleed, then obviously you're not going to be able to take advantage of that weakness, so to speak. But I mean, to be fair, if it's flesh and blood, it's probably at least a little susceptible to bleed damage. Resource quality. I very much like the idea of hitting a node and it having the ability to proc either higher quality or greater quantity. Whether that's like a 1% chance or a 50% chance, doesn't matter. It's the fact that there is a chance for that to happen, I think is really, really cool. Be great if you had high level in it. You can make the mobs in the dungeon walk away. You imagine, like, you're such a high skilled animal tamer and you've tamed like 500 bears in your time, that whenever you see a bear, you can pretty much just communicate with it because you've learned their language. That would be a really cool element of the game, not only for, you know, potentially avoiding fights, but to maybe learn a little bit more about the world and interact with, like, if there's like a high level bear that's the boss of a dungeon or something, and you can kind of talk to it, you might not be able to deter it from its course of action, but you may be able to learn about why it's there and why it is the way it is. And maybe that could lead to further questing, or secrets or treasure hunting or whatever. That would be really cool. Have a good night, Wizzy. Thank you for hanging out. Appreciate it. Always good luck keeping this train on the tracks, I tell you. All right, resource extractors. This is an interesting one. Resource extractors are potential constructions that can collect resources over time. Available to node citizens who own a freehold near a resource center. So this is kind of what you were talking about earlier, Twidget, I think. Requires several people to construct. Moving resources from the extractor will likely require a caravan. So it's a little bit different than what you were talking about with the farmhands, but similar kind of idea, as in a passive way to acquire resources, essentially. So here's a list of resources. We got chickens, cows, crops, eggs, fish, foliage, herbs, livestock, lumber, milk, mushrooms, ore, potatoes, and wheat. A lot good amount of resources to be able to gather there. Whether or not these will all, like, I'm really curious to see what a chicken extractor looks like. I mean, maybe we can go down to KFC or McDick's and see what their chicken extractor looks like, but I'd be a little afraid to see what goes on inside that thing. Yeah, this isn't necessarily for freeholds, or it is for freeholds, sorry, but it's like not an NPC driven one. Although it does make it interesting. So if it's only available to node citizens who own a freehold near a resource center, why would it require a caravan to transport those goods? Maybe this does not mean that it is placed on a freehold, but near it. Yeah, I will have to look for the video and see. But I think I do remember something like that, of seeing people working the freehold, essentially. You saw nothing. Hey, Shy Turtle, how's it going? It is an interesting idea, though, I think. The ability to have that. So gathering skills, cool. The harvest skill allows players to gather resources. The skill displays a green circle. Placing the green circle over the resource will start the keystroke skill. If the player hits the harvest skill whilst in the red area, they can crit on their harvest. Interesting. Thank you, Shy Turtle. So it's not just going to be as simple as walking up and hitting the E button, as we kind of saw in this screenshot here, to gather. It might not be that simple. It might be you get up to it, you go to hit the button, and then it starts a circle thing. And if you hit it during a specific point, I imagine the rarer the resource, the smaller that window gets to hit it in a certain thing. So it actually gives you an element of control over proccing the crit. It's not just pure RNG. That's interesting. So very, very skilled gatherers will be more productive. They will get more out of their time in harvesting than those that aren't paying attention or aren't as good at timing it. That's kind of cool. I really like that. It gives it rewards paying attention and skill, which is always nice, of course. Loot tagging. Looting rates, also known as loot tagging, is based on a tag and DPS damage. Okay, so this is talking about that. Gatherers may have the ability to spoil a boss's loot. What? No AFK farming. Exactly. I mean, it's going to be difficult to achieve that, I think, in Ashes anyways, but it's nice to see that even if you are doing that, you're not going to be as efficient as someone who is really on the ball. If you want to be able to get those mats from the boss, they're just not going to drop for anybody. They will only drop for a master gatherer who is capable of extracting those resources from the creature itself. The reason why we say there's a lot of interdependencies between the crafters of the world and the raiders of the world and our PvPers of the world is because we don't want to house the capability to attain these things all within the adventuring class. We want there to be an influence necessary from the Craftsman's Guild to come in to either come and participate and spoil the boss and gather the goods or something along those lines. Okay, so it's like if you kill an elemental boss, you might need a certain level gatherer in order to come and extract or something like that from essence of that elemental. Artisan supply chain. This is where now we really start to get into the economics of the crafting system. I don't know why he uses the word spoil. When I hear the word spoil in that context, it makes me think that you'd like taint the boss's drops so that nobody can get them. Or something along those lines. So yeah, that's a little it's a little weird. Steven's usually pretty careful with his choice of words. He's very well spoken. As much as he fumbles over words like I do, but a million thoughts going through your head at the same time, and that's how it goes. But yeah, there's definitely some key information I think that we need clarification on within the gathering profession specifically, never mind crafting as a whole. Spoil probably mean if you're not there to kill the mob, you can get anything from it. That could be it too, right? Like if you don't have the right person there, maybe the gatherer needs to be there to unlock the loot in a way, shape, or form, or to unlock portions of the loot, or at least, you know, like even in WoW, right? If you kill a boss, if there's nobody in there that's a skinner, then you can't get the skin from that boss, which is typically going to be a pretty rare skin for specific recipes. That's what I'm thinking. It's going to be very specific to that. Artisans within Ashes must choose a path in the artisan skill tree. This intermediate establishes a supply chain from raw materials to finished product. Each stage of the chain may require caravans to transport goods from one artisan to another. Absolutely. So gathering is how you obtain raw materials. The raw materials get basically given to a processor that turns them into processed goods. The processed goods get sent to a crafter to become finished goods. Typical supply chain. So raw materials can be obtained from gathering by killing mobs and bosses, some of which you may require a gatherer to obtain those resources. Some you might not. They might just be a drop. Deconstructing weapons and armor, that is likely, I would imagine that's something that's either done by an NPC, in which case they probably do it at a cost to you, or it'll be done by a crafter, like an armor smith will be able to deconstruct armor by purchasing them from other players. And yeah, so that's pretty much the step of it. Processing, crafting, we'll get into. Well, processing, I think we'll talk a bit about next time, and then crafting we'll probably talk about after that. Crafting might be a little bit bigger of a discussion because there's so many professions under the crafting branch that there's a lot there to talk about. But yeah, any other final thoughts on gathering, you guys? On the gathering system, what we have here versus any other thoughts you have around what you want it to be, what you don't like, what you do like? I'm curious. We talked a bit about hiring NPCs. absolutely, there should be a chance for them to fail, and they should be totally killable. If they were killable by players, I would like to see that player be subject to the corruption system, the same as if they're killing any other player. At the same time, like you mentioned, Dread, I think that requires an extremely advanced AI system to execute this in a way that would appease player expectations. So rather than just be a complete waste of money, because the NPCs would have to have a certain ability to defend themselves, depending on the level of them and how much you paid them. Obviously, the higher level they are, the more adept they are at dealing with external threats, whether it be other players or other NPCs, the more it's going to cost you. Things as well as their ability to gather higher level stuff. Now there will be a pseudo way of doing that by having you as a mayor, even as a freehold owner, I believe, you will have the agency to put up quests for other players to partake on, where you put up a reward for gathering X amount of resources. So there will be some ways to kind of achieve that without even having an NPC way of going out to gather on your behalf. Crafting should have events or something other to craft. Like there will be like node level events and things like that for crafting. To build buildings and things like that. The mayor will be able to put out quests or building initiatives to grow and develop the node. Other games like Blade and Soul just makes it not visible in the open world, which is what I want to avoid. But it's equally bad to have NPCs getting stuck on things. Yeah, you don't want them to get stuck on things. You don't want them to just be dumb bots, essentially. Just join. What are we talking about? Hey, President Xander, how you doing? Welcome to the stream. We've been talking about gathering, specifically the gathering profession tree. All forms of gathering that are what it's looking like for Ashes of Creation right now. Like Thumper for gatherers, Crafter can make stuff like house stuff, Xmas during that time. I think there'll be stuff like that in the game. Now, whether or not like what Ashes is going to incorporate in terms of holiday type events, we'll have to see. Like, how much are they gonna break kayfabe in a way? Like, are they gonna really deviate from the Varen world and cross with real life? Like, are we gonna have a Christmas at Christmas time that's all red and white and Santa and candy canes and Christmas trees everywhere? Or is it gonna be something completely different? Also, we have to remember that every week is going to be a different season, essentially meaning we're going to go through a year of game time every month. How does that, does that mean that we're going to have these seasonal type events happening once a month? Seems excessive. So we'll have to see. I'm guessing sea stuff will likely be all cosmetic skins. Potentially, but there could be in-game events just to bring community together and do exciting things for, yes, cosmetic type stuff, whether it be fireworks or a new, pet skin or something like that, a logo that you can unlock to go on a tabard or something. Or, cooking recipes, things like that. They might not necessarily introduce new super powerful buffs or something like that to the game, but it might be something temporary or something that's in line with what already exists in the game, but puts kind of a seasonal or cosmetic flair onto it as well. Cook can make a cake for the house as decoration. Oh yes, how about it needs to be able to make a burger cake. How about that? Needs to be able to make a burger cake, but not able to be eaten. Well, that sounds like someone's burger cake. Have you guys finished that thing? I assume you finished that thing by now, right, Dread? I think this might be where we have 2-week winter at Christmas time, RL. That would be, yeah. Maybe we'll see kind of seasonal variations. I'm really curious to see how they're going to tie the seasons together in a meaningful way that feels believable, not too rigid and structured, but that it could actually flows from one to the next over this very accelerated timeline, as well as the different biomes and how it's going to affect them. Obviously, that seasonal rotation, like, are we going to have different corners of the world are experiencing different seasons at any given time, and it's just going to kind of rotate like a clock? Or I'm curious to see how exactly it's going to work. Are we going to have hemispheres? Prefer if there wasn't. However, knowing their marketing team, there absolutely will be. Yeah, they're pretty big on cosmetic stuff for sure. An event, yeah, I think we will have seasonal event. I think they've talked about it. I think Steven has talked about having seasonal events, things like that, but not wanting to cross over too much into the real world and keep them a little bit more appropriately themed to the world of Vera. So we'll have to see, and a lot of which will essentially come from Sanctus. Really, I had one slice total, but it was all right. Wish I could have had it extra fresh. No doubt, eh? It's one of those things, it's like, man, this is a beautiful piece of artwork, but it looks and smells so good. I just want to cut into it, but at the same time, I don't want to ruin it, you know? Like, yo, President Xander, thank you for the follow, my friend. I appreciate that. Welcome to the Tilted Paradise. Like a sudden loss of leaves, instead of at midnight, it would change instantly. Yeah, like over the course of a day, let's say, the leaves turn from green and they start to change color and blow away. You know, so in a 24-hour period, it could go from fall to winter kind of thing, you know? Or I guess over the course of more so a week, but it would constantly, like every day would be something is happening to progress the season, rather than it's just, okay, you have 7 days of this season, then bam, 7 days of the next season, bam, 7 days of the next season. Like races, gathering stuff, music, plays, fashion shows. I hope there's races in the game. I think if there's not racing in the game in its own right, there will no doubt be races in the game put on by communities. I don't know that I would personally host a race, because there's other content that I want to focus on myself, but I could see races being a thing, you know? Maybe that'll be something that Asmongold does, because he's huge into his mount-offs and all these things. So hey, yeah, you want to be animal husbandry? Make sure you're on Asmongold server. You'll make a mint, just like everyone else. Fishing contests, absolutely. It's managing those things that I feel like would be difficult to do. How you manage those contests where you're not able to really, you're kind of just working on the honor system. Racing of what sort? Like on mounts. Like you could have races for like tier 1 mounts, right? So you have all tier 1 mounts come in, and it's like, okay, let's do a race, and we're going to go follow these paths around this area. You have to go around that rock, around this tree. How you get there and everything else is up to you. You know, maybe it's death race. If you really want to win, you could kill your other players, or arrange for somebody to sabotage and come up and kill them if you really want to, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Anyways, you guys, great discussion tonight. Really appreciate it. As always, I will be cutting out some of the dead air and whatnot on this one and putting it up on the YouTube channel for this week. So if you missed anything, you want to see it, be sure to check it out on the YouTube channel. We did that. Wow, we just had officers, places to see and make sure no one cheated. Exactly. Yeah, you have a couple key people around the certain checkpoints that need to be hit and be like, yeah, okay, these players went through there, or so and so didn't go through the checkpoint. Yeah, that makes it so much easier to manage something like that, because you can actually have accountability checks in place. Not being able to have that and running strictly off the honor system, you may as well just roll the dice and you know. So thanks for doing tangents with us live. Oh, I love doing the tangents, man. That's what makes the live streaming fun. It's the tangents, it's the random chit chat. That's what makes this fun. Fishing comp will be fun to watch. Fishing competitions are going to be a thing. I would expect to think that, especially in higher level coastal nodes, that fishing tournaments, fishing derbies will be a real thing for sure. That happen, and there will actually be an in-game way to log that. If there isn't, Steven, if you're listening, anyone from Intrepid, that needs to be a thing. There needs to be a way to facilitate fishing tournaments, whether they are player hosted and the reward is fronted by the player base, or if there's actually node level stuff that the mayor can incorporate. It's like, hey, everybody, you want to enter this tournament? It's 100 gold to enter. Prize is 1,000 gold. Or split it up however you want. If you only get 3 people that enter, well, maybe the node's going to be out a bit of money. But if you're in a highly populated node and you schedule it at a time or for a length of time that a lot of people can come for, the node could potentially make a lot of money from it, and that money can then go towards defenses and further node development. So I think something like that is really, really cool. You're right that there needs to be some sort of tracking for sure. Can even be with a timestamp on the fish, so pre-caught fish are automatically already dated. Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, if there's a fishing derby or something going on, there's ways to easily track that. And exactly, a timestamp could be very relevant to that. Maybe during the window, there's a certain affix or prefix on the fish's name that qualifies them for the derby or for entrance into the final tally. And then is it going to be most fish caught? Is it going to be the size of the fish? Rarity of the fish? Yeah. Finer tuning stuff, but to have that framework in place, at least to start, I think would be really, really key. It'd be a lot of fun. And then maybe you get to keep the fish you caught. It could be part of gathering too, right? There you go. Anyways, you guys, that's going to do it for me for tonight. My throat is really done. This much chatting really gets me going, I tell you. But yeah, thank you guys all so much for hanging out. I really do appreciate it as always.